let's go. Now, making these amazing wind machines is quite a complicated process, and I'll try to make it as succinct as I can and show you how I begin. This is the final product that I'm talking about right now. It's some call it a hornet or a firefly. It actually started out as a bee, and I've done it in all kinds of different colors. But it too is a whirligig that operates in the wind. And I began it with rough sketches of funny little bees and buzzing things and thinking about how something would fly in the wind, with sketches like that. The second stage is to convert those funny little sketches into something workable. This is truly art and science. So I actually work on a drawing board with a T-square the old-fashioned way. I haven't computerized this part at all. And I begin working out, this is an engineering drawing. I began working out how the shaft will run through the center and how the wind will work on the various parts of the bee to make it work. Okay, and then that engineering drawing becomes even, you can see how it's becoming more refined here as I work out the various segments of the belly and think about how the head works, and here it shows how the eye is going to turn inside the head. It's a back and forth process. I do work from nature, so I was having trouble working out the details of the head, so I go back and look at a real bee and pictures of real bees. I even watched some cartoons of cartoon bees, and as I began to develop work on sketches of the head. You can see here the eyeballs are coming into play, and all the time I have to keep in mind how this thing is going to work so that there's enough space inside of it for the eye to turn, and so that the balance as the wind hits it is correct. At some point then, it's a back and forth, like I said, I begin making patterns. Now, this is a final pattern for the inside frame or structure of this whole unit. And it holds all the mechanical parts, the shaft that goes through it. It has the balance point where it will turn on the windmill. It has the various holes located where the motion will take place. And so this is a pattern for the frame. And then I have to develop all the parts and pieces patterns. And you see, here is the original drawing for the pattern of the body, which becomes this part here, with its belly, this part here. Head, as it developed, it became a piece that looks like this. And there's the headpiece flattened. More development on the head. I really did struggle with this, and finally came up with the ring around the eye, which helped emphasize that whole movement of the eye. The wings, as I began working on the wings, those also needed a lot of work. You see, I went back to the sketches phase here, and finding the right material that was lightweight enough to make these wings was an important factor in the development of this particular animal here. These are the legs. Here's further development on the wings. This became the pattern for the legs, which when formed and twisted, which is a later process, ends up looking like that. That is the beginning process of this whole shebang, called a whirligig. out in Medina County. I studied at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, and I have a degree in industrial design. That's kind of where I began this whole thing. I also went to Cornell, and I have a Master's of Art from Cornell. I spent almost 22 years working in industry as a designer, largely in the trade show exhibit industry, and a lot of those processes and materials that I used during that time period are what I have come to apply in my own business, Amazing Wind Machines. This I started almost 20 years ago now, and now I commute to work about 50 feet from my house to the workshop every day, and this is where we make whirligigs. I do have a few assistants and helpers that work with me. This is a very involved, labor-intensive process, and we spend a normal work day working in the shop, and then occasionally I go to art and craft fairs to let the public see these wonderful creations. The way my work year progresses is I tend to work 3 weeks in the workshop almost every day, and spend 1 week a month on the road at certain craft fairs. I go as far away as St. Paul, Minnesota in the winter. I go down to Sarasota, Florida. I go to St. Louis, Missouri, and I also do a number of local shows. I'll be doing Boston Mills in Peninsula soon. I'll be doing the show in Medina in the park. But anyhow, once a month I'm on the road in some place talking to the public and showing my wares and selling them at a craft show. Then I come back home, hopefully with orders, and we begin the whole process over again, making more whirligigs. Now, as I said, I can't do this alone. I've always had assistants and helpers that work with me. And for 10 years I had a wonderful assistant and life companion, Jack Wilkins, who worked with me and was very instrumental in creating these whirligigs and traveling with me to shows. He's now in whirligig land, and I have a couple other helpers that work with me almost on a daily basis. David Judy over here is on the main construction bench and is working on a dog named Billy, who happens to have a clothespin on his nose right now. But this dog is for a woman's birthday, and I've got to get it shipped out tomorrow so that it gets to her for her birthday on time. Now, this demonstrates one of the processes that I use in making these. It's kind of unusual. The amazing thing about my whirligigs is they're all completely made out of a PVC plastic. And for this process, I need gloves because it gets hot. All right, this is obviously a flat piece of plastic. It's the pattern for the head of a frog that will look like this, and I'm going to sculpt it into this shape. I do use heat. Here's my trusty heat gun in its can holster here. And now I do this with a variety of different heating techniques. For the bigger pieces, I actually use an old oven that I bought in a yard sale. But for the smaller pieces like this, I can do it by hand. This is a typical heat gun that you might use to remove paint, and it gets quite hot. But you can see as I start how the material becomes flexible as I start to heat it. Now I'm doing this frog head in a general, sometimes I heat just spots, and this time I'm trying to heat the whole frog head so that I can give him some personality. Now the wooden jigs are part of each design. Each design has its own set of jigs and forms that I also build out of a variety of things. You see what I'm doing here? It's giving there, and I've got to give him his lips. He's gonna fight me on this. I'm gonna have to. There we get his eye done right there. Now I got to come back in and heat him a little bit more to get his lips formed. But you can begin to see how the shape is taking form. And I do this over and over again for as many as I'm going to make. Let's see if I got his lips. That's what I want to do. Just form his cute little frog lips. Get his head. This stuff amazes me every time I use it because you can work with it and heat it and reheat it. And it's a material that's used for commercial signage. So it comes in colors. It's got a UV retardant in it, so it's good for outdoors. Now you see where I've got some of the little shapes of the glove are left in it, and I can just heat those out and get reconfigured here. But now we're getting to the point where we've got a frog head. And then you can see from the front, he'll have little frog lips when I get the piece done underneath. And that's how I do each part and piece. Painting area of my workshop. We do use paint on a number of things, even though the plastics do have color in them. A lot of the dogs, and this is a corn cob for the squirrel and the flying corn cob, they need special colors of their own. So I use exterior house paint. So the painting all happens right up here in this area. These are some dogs in progress. They're ready to go downstairs for assembly, but they've been painted, and they will become barking golden retrievers. And this is the key to it all. This is propeller making right here. All the propellers have been made downstairs and brought up here, and the heat bending of these propellers takes place right here using a variety of very complex jigs that I've made. This is the awards wall and publicity wall, and I try to keep things framed and up to date. And one thing of note here is my celebrity collector that I know of is Richard Simmons, and he owns one of my Dalmatian wind machines, and there it's pictured on his shelf in his home in McCall's magazine.